Forget dusty exhibits and lifeless displays. At Beamish, the living museum of the North, history explodes into life. This immersive and interactive museum recreates life in northeast England through the ages, and a day is just not enough time to take it all in. Join us as we explore all the different time periods, from the 1820s through to the 1950s, walking on foot and sometimes on wonderful transport relics of the past. We'll time travel through an idyllic hamlet featuring thatched cottages, a glowing coal fire, picturesque local church and charming hillside farmhouse. Experience life in a coal mining community and learn of the hardships at the 1900s Pit Village. Stroll along a wonderful Edwardian town high street with fascinating shops and businesses and catch a glimpse of the almost open, brand new 1950s town. It was truly a day to remember, immersed in the past, learning about life in the north at Beamish. Instead of a traditional gate, Beamish Museum welcomes you with a striking piece of industrial history. Tiny Tim, a massive steam hammer donated by the English Steel Corporation. Once used to shape metal at their concert ironworks, as you pass beneath it, you're invited to step back in time and immerse yourself in the rich history of the Northeast, where industries like this one shape the landscape and lives of its people. Beamish is sandwiched between Durham and Newcastle upon Tyne in the north of England. You can find all the information about visiting on this website. Tickets last a year, so you can come back as often as you like. It opens at 10 AM and we were some of the first through the gates, ready to catch one of the many buses and trams that run around this vast museum. The first pickups of the day are always packed due to the sudden influx of people, but it smooths out over the day so you never have to wait long. We took a ride on this 1947 Sunderland Corporation Crosley. It was in service around the streets of Sunderland until 1962, when it was converted into a mobile polling station. Beautifully restored, it has been used at the museum since it was purchased in 2021. We'll do a circuit of the museum grounds first, so you can see just how huge it is and get an idea of the wonderful recreations that we'll explore in detail during this video. You can jump on and off the buses at numerous stops along the route and then walk into a new era in time. Taking an anti-clockwise route, the first stop will be the 1820s. You can experience life in a rural northern English village before the Industrial Revolution. A Georgian wagonway and pastures that feature quaint cottages and pockily old hall will have you instantly forgetting you're at a museum. As we carry on round, it's a race between combustion and electric as we chase the Sunderland 16 tram built in 1900. Tramways offered a solution to the growing transportation needs of cities in the late 1800s, replacing slower horse-drawn carriages. All of the 1.5 miles of overhead lines have been salvaged from Newcastle, South Shields, Teesside and Bradford systems. We are just passing the newly developed 1950s town. It was just a few weeks away from fully opening during our visit. The sweeping S-bend turn of the road brings us into the quiet surroundings of the 1900 town, where you can explore shops and businesses and the wonderful houses on Ravensworth Terrace. It's a popular stop for visitors and won't be so quiet when we explore later. So we've got the bus to ourselves. Everyone has just got off at the 1900s town. We're just doing a loop of the museum first of all to get the lay of the land, and then we'll start exploring. Just before the bend on the right, you can see the signal box of Rowley Station, a delightfully recreated Edwardian station and goods yard. Can you believe that it was moved here brick by brick? More on that later. At the next stop, we said farewell to the bus and transferred to the tram for the last leg of our loop. At this stop, you can visit either the 1940s farm or down into the 1900s Pit Village. The farm offers a fascinating glimpse into rural life during World War II. It's not just about farming, it's about how the war impacted everyday life, from food rationing to the role of women and children. We had to wait a few minutes at this stop whilst another gorgeous bus pulled up, a replica of a 1910 London General B-type open-top double-decker. We also waited for tram 114, one of 20 open-top A-class trams built in 1901. Imagine riding through the streets of Newcastle upon Tyne on this breezy tram, enjoying the sights and sounds of the city. Built by Hurst Nelson & Co in Motherwell, Scotland, it carries 53 passengers on its wooden seats. After serving faithfully for decades, 114 was eventually retired in the 1950s. But that wasn't the end of the story. Its body was recovered years later on a farm near Scunthorpe. After a few more moves and finally arriving at Beamish in 1987, expert craftsmen carefully rebuilt it, using as many original parts as possible. They even found a suitable undercarriage and motor from a tram in Porto, Portugal, and controllers from another company. These are the lengths Beamish go to give machines and buildings a new lease of life. Absolutely incredible. From our tram to our final stop on the loop, we passed the wonderful Pit Village. It looks so real and alive. We'll step back to 1913, the peak of coal production in the northeast, and experience the sights, sounds, and even the smells of a time when coal was king a little later. Right, that's all the fun on the transport completed. Let's get started in the 1820s. The stone carving depicts horsepower meeting steam power at the Pockley Wagonway. Long before the age of steam, horses played a crucial role in transportation. As far back as 1600, they hauled wagons filled with goods along rudimentary railways, consisting of wooden tracks and wagons with wooden wheels. The wagonway demonstrates the technological stepping stone that led to the modern-day railways. The exhibit represents the year 1825, when the Stockton and Darlington Railway opened. Metal rails and steam engines slowly started to replace horses and the wooden tracks. The northeast of England was a pioneer in this technology. Wagonways crisscrossed the region, connecting collieries to the River Tyne, fueling the burgeoning Industrial Revolution. Visitors can take a steam train ride through the landscape on Puffing Billy, a replica of the original locomotive built in 1813. A selection of period coaches are used to convey passengers on a short 5-minute trip up the line. This included a black chaldron wagon, which was specifically designed to carry coal from the mines to the rivers and ports. They were particularly common in the northeast of England, where coal mining was a major industry and wagonways were the primary means of transport. You can get up close to several of these wagons around the yard. Chaldron originally referred to a unit of volume used to measure coal. It varied regionally but was roughly equivalent to 53 hundredweight, about 2.7 metric tons. We didn't wait for a ride on the train, as waiting for extra activities would make it impossible to get around all the areas in one day. To do everything at a relaxed pace, really you need 2 days now due to the size and detail of the museum. The Great Shed highlights the support systems needed to keep the wagonway running smoothly. It emphasises that transportation relies on more than just vehicles. It requires maintenance, repair and skilled workers. This coal fire was a welcome sight, as it was pretty chilly at Beamish that day. As we begin to walk down into the fields of crops and hay meadows that showcase the importance of farming in the region, the incursion of industry can be clearly seen as the engine cuts through the otherwise idyllic landscape, a symbol of the industrial age encroaching upon the traditional landscape. We are approaching the Quilter's Cottage, which is currently closed for renovation. This cottage follows the life of Joseph Headley. Joseph was a renowned quilter in Northumberland in the early 19th century. His intricate patchwork quilts were highly sought after, even reportedly reaching America. In 1826, Joe was brutally murdered in his own cottage, a crime that shocked the nation, unsolved to this day. His original cottage was demolished in 1872, but Beamish had special permission to excavate the location and found remnants of the structure, including flagstones, the fireplace, and sections of foundation walls. Using a drawing from the press at the time, the cottage has been rebuilt and includes the original materials found, a fitting memorial to Joe. Even the crack in the wall from the drawing of 1826 has been recreated. A simple one-storey dwelling with a heather thatch, typical of what a rural labourer or craftsman might have lived in during the 1820s. The interior is normally furnished with authentic items from the period, giving a sense of how Joe would have lived and the tools and materials he used to create his intricate quilts. The cottage highlights the importance of cottage industries in the rural economy of the 1820s. Quilting, like many other crafts, was often done in the home to supplement income. St Helen's Church has a fascinating history that spans centuries. Originally built in Eston, North Yorkshire, its oldest part dates back to the 12th century. For generations, it served as a vital hub for the local community, witnessing countless baptisms, weddings and funerals. Sadly, by the late 20th century, the church fell into disrepair due to vandalism and neglect. Facing demolition, it was rescued by Beamish, who carefully dismantled the structure brick by brick. It was stored for a decade before it was rebuilt here over 3 years. Each brick was numbered, ready for painstaking reconstruction, and these numbers can still be seen on the outside of the church. The tower is late 1600s with 2 bells, one a rare Tudor example. The nave was rebuilt in the 19th century and includes Georgian pews and other period artifacts brought in from other locations to complete the feel of the church. Climbing the hill, we arrive at Pockley Old Hall, which showcases the life of a wealthy tenant farmer during the era. This building is actually in its original location, having stood overlooking this landscape for centuries. A farmstead attached to the house demonstrates how the land was worked and who did the work. This is a living working farm with livestock, crops and activities that would have been typical for the period. You might see demonstrations going on all over the museum, and it just depends on what's happening each day. This chap was making handles for farming tools. The main farmhouse is thought to date from the late 1700s. You may see costumed characters going about daily life. A lavish afternoon tea has been laid out on the dining room table for the squire and his family. The squire's bedroom on the first floor is bright with a south-facing view across the landscape. This is the dry store room containing grain and flour and other dry goods. I found it odd that this was on the first floor, however learnt it was directly above the kitchen, and the warmth from below helped keep the contents dry. It makes perfect sense. This is the Hinds room, where 3 or 4 male hired hands would sleep. It's a pretty dark and dingy room, and a serving hand used this smaller room, where a trap door is the only way in and out for these men, avoiding being in the main house. The gardens at Pockley Old Hall are more than a pretty backdrop. They would have provided food, medicine and beauty for the household, and they offer a glimpse into the horticultural practices and social customs of the time. The gardens are laid out in a series of terraces, following the natural slope of the land. The gardens highlight the importance of self-sufficiency in the 1820s. Families relied on their own gardens to provide a significant portion of their food. Let's catch a tram and move on to a new era, the 1900 Pit Village and Colliery. The north of England, with its rich seams of coal, was once the heartland of the British coal industry. Dotting this landscape were countless pit villages, tight-knit communities built around the collieries that provided their livelihood. Beamish allows us to step back to 1913, the peak of coal production in the northeast, and experience the sights, sounds and even the smells of this time. Coal mining villages were a unique feature of the industrial landscape. They were often built by the colliery owners to house their workers, creating self-contained communities that were heavily reliant on the mine. Life was tough, with long hours, dangerous working conditions, and the ever-present threat of accidents or strikes. Yet these villages were also places of strong community spirit, where people looked out for each other and shared a common bond. Davies is a recreation of a traditional fish and chip shop, something that became increasingly popular in the early 1900s. The Northeast had nearly 500 by 1914. They weren't the quick takeaways we know today, but places to sit, eat and socialise. The shop is based on a real fish and chip shop at Winlerton Mill, Tyne and Wear, which closed in 2007. Many of the original fixtures and fittings, including a 1934 coal-fired range, was saved and brought to Beamish. The Francis Street cottages were originally built in the 1860s at Hettonley Hole, a mining town in County Durham. They were built by the Hetton Coal Company to house their workers and families. They usually had a kitchen at the back and the main living space in the middle, and a front room or parlour. Life would have been basic but comfortable for the time. Families often shared the limited space, and daily life revolved around the coal mine and the community. The cottages were carefully dismantled brick by brick and rebuilt at Beamish Museum in the 1970s. Number 1 is the mine manager's office for meetings and receiving visitors, dealing with the running of the mine. Number 2 is laid out as a Methodist home, where faith played a central role in daily life. Number 3, the home of a family of Irish descent, a reminder of the diverse communities drawn to the coalfields in search of work. Number 4, a sombre atmosphere hangs over this cottage, home of a widow and her children, highlighting the ever-present dangers faced by miners, her husband killed in a pit accident. Wages were often low. Allotments provided a vital way to supplement the family diet with fresh fruit and vegetables. They were a source of food security in uncertain times. Allotments weren't just about growing food, they were also a place for miners and their families to meet and chat, building a strong sense of community. There would often be friendly rivalry over who could grow the biggest onions or the best leeks. Tending to the allotment could be a welcome escape from the harsh realities of life in the pit. Just like Francis Street, the Pit Hill Chapel isn't a reproduction. It was originally built in the 1850s in the nearby village of Beamish. It arrived here in 1990. The chapel represents the strong Methodist tradition that was prevalent in mining communities in the northeast. Methodism offered a source of comfort, community and hope in the often harsh and dangerous world of coal mining. Pit Hill Chapel is a simple but beautiful building. Chapels like this were important social hubs in the community. They hosted not only religious services, but also a variety of events. Children would attend Sunday school to learn about the Bible and Christian values. They were also used for meetings, lectures and social gatherings. And of course, many chapels had choirs that would perform at services and special occasions. Originally built in 1892, the schoolhouse served the community of East Stanley, a mining village just a couple of miles from Beamish. It was dismantled and brought here in the 1980s. A large classroom where children of various ages learnt together dominates the space. Wooden desks and a prominent blackboard evoke the traditional teaching methods of the era. The atmosphere reflects the strict discipline and emphasis on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Visitors can experience the school day and even play traditional playground games like hopscotch, marbles, or grab a hoop and run around the playground hoop rolling. At the other end of the village is the colliery and the mahogany drift mine. The colliery is a mix of buildings and machinery from various collieries around the northeast. A drift mine is an underground mine that has an entry above water level and is usually located on a hill slope. The entry is driven horizontally into the ore seam or coal bed. The mine opened on this site in 1885, taking coal to Beamish Chop Hill. You can take a guided tour into the mine, but the queues were long with interested families, so we avoided it in the interest of getting around the museum in a day. The Colliery Railway is a direct recreation of a typical colliery railway in the northeast during the early 20th century. It demonstrates how coal was transported within the colliery site, moving it from the pit head by rail and connecting onto mainline railways for distribution. The prominent stone winding house and wooden heapstead building are key parts of the colliery, showcasing how coal was brought up from the mine shaft. Men, ponies and tubs were lowered into the mine and coal was brought back up to be weighed and screened. Miners were paid by how much they hewed. A numbered disc attached to the tub indicated which miner had filled it. After processing, the tubs left the pit head to fill the large chaldron wagons on the standard gauge railway ready for dispatch. The engine works keeps the wheels turning, a building that dates from 1885. The colliery engines are maintained here and can be seen demonstrating the movement of wagons from time to time on the standard gauge trackbed. You can often see them in various states of disassembly or reassembly, providing a rare glimpse under the hood of these complex machines. Across from the school is the pit pony stables. They were used extensively in the mining industry. The small Shetland ponies were able to navigate the low mine tunnels. Sadly, they were worked from the age of 4 and some lived underground for their entire lives. Most of the ponies at Beamish have been rescued from situations where they were no longer wanted or needed and now enjoy a well looked after life. The Hetton Silver Band Hall tells the story of a colliery town's passion with music. Formed in 1887 at Hettonley Hole, the band initially practiced at a humble tiny hut. Their dedication led to national success, and with winnings from the 1912 competition, they built a new brick hall around the old hut, dismantling it from within once complete. This hall served as a community hub for almost a century. Facing challenges in later years, the band merged with another, leading to the hall's donation and meticulous relocation at Beamish Museum, Pit Village. Opened in 2019, the Northern General Transport Bus Depot shows us how Beamish keeps its fleet of historic buses running. Accommodating 8 buses with modern maintenance equipment allows the staff to service these wonderful relics that safely take us around the museum. This is a 37-seater 1928 Northern General SOS QL Queen Class Low Bus. Withdrawn from service in 1948, it became a caravan but was then brought to the museum and restored over a lengthy 20 years. The Leyland Lion LT1 was one of the first buses purchased by Sunderland Corporation in 1929 to serve routes around Sunderland. A replica of a 1913 Daimler motor bus based on vehicles supplied to the Gateshead and District tramways.
What's really nice, I think, about the museum is, whilst it's extremely busy today because it's kids' half term, you find pockets, little areas where there is just nobody because the place is so big. And we're down at the station now, and it's really nice. You can just hear the birds, and I wish there was a train chugging by, but you've got the trams and the buses. But it's so beautiful, having a really good time.
Rowley Station is a fascinating piece of North East Railway history. It was the very first relocated building to come to Beamish, opening in 1976 by the then Poet Laureate Sir John Betjeman. The exhibit consists of the station platform, waiting rooms, signal box, goods yards and coal drop that came from West Bolden, highlighting the importance of coal distribution from the mines. Special wagons could drop coal through the tracks to be shovelled onto waiting carts for local sale. The goods yard was a busy area adjacent to the coal drops where railway wagons were shunted and assembled into trains. It features multiple tracks to accommodate different types of wagons and allows the efficient movement of coal and other goods. During peak season and most weekends, trains chug up and down a short piece of track, and visitors can enjoy a quick ride. Sadly, we were here midweek, so didn't have the opportunity to see it in action. The bridge is made of wrought iron, a common material for railway bridges in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Strong, durable, and could be crafted into elegant designs. It was a common sight at stations across Britain, allowing passengers and staff to cross the tracks safely. This one was relocated from Springwell Village, another former station in County Durham. A North Eastern railway hut has been converted into a gardening shed, depicting a time when small allotments popped up at stations. A proud station master who might have lived nearby tended to the plants and vegetables, reminding us of a time of self-sufficiency and when plants adorned many railway stations and staff entered North Eastern Railway's best kept wayside station competition. The station served the small rural community of Rowley and the nearby village of Castleside from 1845. It was a typical country station with basic facilities, however it handled freight traffic, particularly ganister, a type of sandstone, and livestock, reflecting the industries of the area. It was a lifeline for the small community, providing transport and delivery of goods. Like many rural railways, Rowley saw a decline in passenger numbers in the early 20th century, with the rise of bus services and private car ownership. The signal box was originally built in 1896 for Car House East Junction near Consett, County Durham. It was a busy junction on a line serving several collieries and ironworks. It was the nerve centre for controlling the movement of trains. The signalman inside had a vital responsibility to ensure the safe and efficient operation of the railway. It retains its original level frame for operating levers that controlled the points, which directed trains onto different tracks, and signals, which gave trains permission to proceed or stop. The signal box also contains other period equipment such as a telephone and telegraph instruments, giving visitors a glimpse into the signalman's working environment. When the line at Car House closed in the 1980s, the signal box was threatened with demolition. Thankfully, Beamish stepped in to save it. Before we arrive in the 1900s town, we can explore the fun fair, a delightful addition to the overall experience. It's a traditional Edwardian style fairground complete with vintage rides and games, very popular with the youngsters and adults alike. The meticulously recreated Edwardian 1900s town transports you to the years leading up to the First World War. It's a place where you can stroll along cobbled streets, peek into shop windows and hear the clatter of a horse-drawn carriage or the bell of a tram. But it's more than just a pretty facade. It's a carefully curated experience designed to tell us about life in this era. The town offers a glimpse into the everyday lives of ordinary people, explore homes furnished in the style of the time, visit shops selling traditional goods, and observe tradesmen plying their crafts. The town also reflects a period of social change, with new technologies like electricity and telephones appearing alongside traditional ways of life. It is brought to life by the costumed staff who inhabit the town, playing the roles of Edwardian residents going about their daily lives. Ravensworth Terrace gives an insight into middle-class life in an Edwardian town. Originally built on Benshaw Bank in Gateshead between 1830 and 45, these houses were saved from demolition in the 1970s and relocated to Beamish. The terrace not only showcases the architectural style of the time, but also reveals the social aspirations and daily lives of the professionals who would have lived here. Visitors can imagine the families and individuals who once called these houses home. Each house has two main floors and originally would have had an attic room for servants. We'll show you a few highlights inside, but they were very popular, making it difficult to take pictures in the confined rooms. Number 3 was a dentist's surgery, and number 4 was his family home. Although presented as two separate houses, there is a connecting door between the surgery and the family house. This was common for professionals like dentists and doctors who often worked from home. A servant welcomed patients into a waiting room at the front of the house. The surgery was upstairs. A reenactment was going on and the surgery room was full. We could only see some of the utensils used for false teeth, although it looks more like a mechanic's workshop. The family house is furnished in a style typical of a middle-class Edwardian family. You'll find cosy rooms with floral wallpaper, patterned floors and fireplaces. The bathroom has a flushing toilet and bath. Gone are trips out to the yard to relieve oneself. The solicitor's office is set up to resemble the office of Robert Spence Watson, a national figure in politics, education and industrial negotiations. The partner's office reflects the status of the solicitor: a large desk, comfortable chairs for clients, and bookcases filled with legal volumes and documents strewn on the table. The smaller clerk's office would have been where the clerk, essentially a legal assistant, worked and received visitors. As we begin to walk down the main cobbled street, on our left is the Sun Inn, a pub where they are pulling pints for adult visitors. It was packed, so we can't show you inside. The pub originally stood on High Bond Gate, Bishop Auckland. It began life as a one-up, one-down cottage. Around the back is the stables, commonly positioned by pubs and inns so travellers and their horses could rest while at meetings or delivering goods. MG Armstrong's immigration and shipping agents, auctioneers and estate agents showcases the rapid growth of industry in countries like the US, Canada and Australia, which created a huge demand for workers. Many immigrants were drawn by the promise of jobs and a better life. Armstrong's took advantage of this and offers a one-stop shop to move abroad. The Co-op building came from Anfield Plain in County Durham, where the society dated back to 1870. It opened at the museum in 1984. There are 3 departments: grocery, drapery and hardware, where visitors can experience shopping in the early 1900s. Let's wander around the hardware store and see what's on offer. In 1844, Rochdale, England was a town where working families struggled to afford decent food. Determined to change this, 28 men, the Rochdale Pioneers, pooled their meagre savings and opened a small cooperative store on Toad Lane. They sold quality goods at fair prices, giving each member a voice to how the store was run and sharing the profits based on how much they spent. This revolutionary divvy system caught on, and soon cooperative stores sprouted up across the nation, offering a lifeline to struggling communities. They joined forces to buy in bulk, further reducing costs for their members. The co-op movement grew, expanding into banking, insurance and other services, always upholding its core values of fairness, democracy and shared ownership. Today, the Rochdale Pioneers' legacy lives on in a global movement with over 1 billion members. From local shops to international enterprises, cooperatives continue to empower communities and champion a fairer way of doing business, proving that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they work together. As you can see, the hardware store supplied a vast array of household goods for indoor and outdoor use. Stepping into a drapery in the early 1900s was like entering a world of textile wonders. It was the spot to find all sorts of materials, from tough wools for the winter coat to light cottons for summer dresses. And if you were feeling fancy, then they had silks and satins for a posh outfit. But it wasn't all about the fabric. They even had everything you needed to actually make the clothes: needles, pins, tons of thread colours and buttons galore. The person running the shop, the draper, was usually pretty knowledgeable about all things fabric and sewing. Need help figuring out how much fabric to buy or what thread to use? They were your go-to expert. Basically, the drapery was like the ultimate craft store for clothes. Before digital tills, shops needed a clever way to move money and sales information around. Enter the Lamson Paragon system, a network of tracks crisscrossing the ceiling. When you bought something, the cashier would pop your payment and a slip with the sale details into a container, attach it to a ball, and whoosh, off it went along the tracks to the central cashier's office. This ingenious system used gravity, was super efficient, prevented theft, and honestly, was just great fun to watch. Unlike modern supermarkets with their pre-packaged convenience, the Beamish grocery emphasises traditional practices. Dry goods like flour and sugar are carefully weighed and dispensed into paper bags, while imposing wheels of cheese and hefty blocks of lard speak to a time before mass production and standardised portions. Jubilee Confectioners always draws a big crowd, and the queue was too long for us to wait. The shop interior is a feast for the senses, with shelves overflowing with colourful jars filled with mouth-watering sweets. Behind a glass window, you can witness the sweet-making process in action. A real shame we couldn't see it. Motoring was still in its early days before the First World War, a time when cars were a novelty and the open road beckoned adventurers. Inside the motor and cycle works, you'll find impressive displays of veteran cars and early motorcycles, maybe even a penny farthing or two. These aren't just for show, you might see them chugging around the museum grounds, offering a glimpse of what driving was like back then. The workshop is a treasure trove of period tools and equipment. You might see the mechanics hard at work tinkering with engines and performing repairs, giving you an insight into the ingenuity required to keep these early vehicles running. It's a window into a time of rapid technological advancement and changing social attitudes. It captures the excitement and challenges of early motoring when cars were transforming the way people lived and travelled. This is a replica of a Barclays Bank branch, typical of the time when regional banks were being acquired and merged with national banks. The Swedish imperial red granite used on the ground floor frontage is intended to represent stability and security. On the ground floor you'll find barred windows for bank tellers to sit behind, and the office of the well-respected bank manager. You can experience what banking was like in the 1900s and even learn about pounds, shillings and pence. Downstairs, you're welcome to explore the strong rooms and safes, holding the cash, safety deposit boxes, deeds and documents. Beside the bank is the Masonic Hall, originally built in Sunderland in 1870, serving the Freemasons at Park Terrace until the 1930s. Freemasonry is a fraternal organisation with a long history and rituals. Masonic halls are where Freemasons hold their meetings and ceremonies, a somewhat secretive society. Traditionally, membership was restricted to men, however there are now women's lodges and mixed lodges in some parts of the world. The hall contains the main lodge room for ceremonies and ante-rooms for robing and preparing for events. This distinctive corner building is based on a real structure in Durham City, with a curved frontage perfect for displaying goods. Home to W. Smith Chemist, with a photographer's shop next door. The shop highlights a time when chemists were more than for just dispensing medicines. They also provided healthcare advice and stocked household supplies like soaps and paints. Photographers were often near or next door a chemist, as they provided all the chemicals for developing images. Having one's photo taken was a popular Victorian pastime. You can dress up for a photo when the shop is open. Joseph Heron's bakery was, in the late 1970s, positioned in Anfield Plain and came to Beamish along with the Co-op building. It offers a delightful immersion into the world of Edwardian baking. Bakeries were not just places to buy bread, they served as community hubs where people gathered to exchange news and socialise. Visitors can witness the baking process firsthand, watching skilled bakers knead dough, shape loaves and decorate cakes using time-honoured techniques. The aroma of freshly baked bread, pastries and biscuits fills the air, tempting visitors to indulge in a taste of the past, although you have to be quick because they sell out fast. Continuing your cobbled stone walk leads you into the new 1950s town. Let's visit the 1940s farm around the other side of the museum first. It's nice to get back to a bit of peace and tranquillity. The 1900s town is by far the most popular part of the museum and brimming with people rushing around. How you'd expect a town to be, I guess. The 1940s farm transports us to wartime Britain when rationing, dig for victory gardens and the vital contribution of land girls were part of everyday life. Before the war, Britain imported a lot of its food. The conflict forced the country to become more self-sufficient. Farms had to increase production dramatically and became extremely important to feed the nation. Farmers were often exempt from being called up to fight, as were other industries like mining and shipbuilding. Much of this farm is in its original location. Land was a precious resource. Farmers were encouraged to plough up grasslands to grow crops and to focus on producing the most essential foods like wheat for bread and potatoes. Many farmers purchased a Fordson N tractor to help speed up tasks around the farm. The government provided subsidies and loans to help them purchase these machines. They worked alongside horses that were still used to plough and harvest. You'll see traditional farm animals like pigs, sheep, cows and poultry around the farm and across the museum. They played a crucial role in wartime food production. This huge stone cheese press was used for removing whey, brought here from a Tyneside mill. The iconic Aga cooker was a staple in many homes, providing heat for cooking and warming the room. Authentic pots, pans and utensils from the era show us how people cooked and prepared meals. The make, do and mend catchphrase is highlighted with the blanket being made on the table, evidence of how people made things last with repaired items and creative uses for scraps. The wireless, the radio, was a vital source of news and entertainment during the war, often the centrepiece of the living room. In the grounds of the farm are two labourers' cottages. One may have been used by evacuees that were moved from towns and cities to the countryside safer from bombing. The other represents accommodation for land girls, members of the Women's Land Army that provided agricultural labour during the war. We didn't make it inside these cottages as they were quite busy. In the garden is an Anderson shelter for up to 6 people during air raids. There is also a 1950s farm to explore at Beamish, highlighting upland farming in the northeast. Sadly, time beat us to visit this. As I said, it's impossible to see all the museum in detail in one day, which is why I guess they give you a year on the tickets to come back for more. The 1950s town was just 2 weeks away from fully opening during our visit. This explores the period of post-war recovery and social change in Britain. Front Street has been open for about 2 years now, and you can buy fish and chips, have your hair done in a 50s hair salon. You really can book a proper haircut here, first come first served, or pop into the 50s cafe for ice cream and jukebox tunes. All very busy today due to hungry visitors. Number 2 Front Street is a recreation of the actual home of Norman Cornish, a famous artist from the northeast of England. He was part of a group of artists called the Spennymoor Settlement, who encouraged each other and held exhibitions. Norman was a coal miner who also had an incredible talent for art. He's known for his paintings that capture everyday life in his community, especially scenes from working class life in County Durham. You'll see furniture, decor and objects typical of the working class home in that period. Upstairs there's a recreation of his studio space where you can see some of his art materials and even unfinished works. Front Street will lead to a new housing estate with a police station and more. I'm sure it's now open. The Grand Cinema from Ryhope in Sunderland has been brought to life, screening films, period newsreels and adverts.
Well, what an incredible day we've had here at Beamish. Absolutely exhausting, lots of walking, but lots of sights through the different eras. It's been absolutely fantastic. Hope you've enjoyed being with us today. We've got lots more like this on the channel. If you like living museums, then check out Bliss Hill Victorian Town in Ironbridge. You can see that at the end. But thanks for watching. Do subscribe and join us again, and we'll see you on the next video.